Hey guys, insight number 3. Now, I'm going to give you my take on this, and then I will read from Elder Holland's book, Our Day Star Rising, which is, I'll briefly show you here. So you'll see 2 videos today. So that's his book here that goes with Exploring the New Testament. Sorry, Elder Holland, got my hand over your name. He doesn't cover every single chapter, but he does give some really valuable insights from his educated opinion. It's not scripture, but it's really wise. Like, I really appreciate it, and it's very, very helpful. But yeah, it doesn't count as scripture because it is Elder Holland's opinion. But he does have like how much experience and how much knowledge, so worth listening to, right? So I'll read that in a different video, what he says about this incident, because I had my thoughts, and then I read what he says, and like, am I thinking the same as him? And in this instance, a little, but also he said something else that really struck out to me, so I wanted to share that with you as well. So it is one of my study resources. Now, if you can't afford the books, don't feel that you have to go out there, but I loved that, and I try and put that as a focus into my life because it just fills me with so much goodness. But anyway, let's get into it. So Matthew 8:24-27. So this is after he's been teaching, and he's healed some people, and there's more. This is when they were possessed with devils, and he's healed Peter's mother-in-law. So there's some other things that happen in the verses in between from where we were in the last one. So this is just some here, and then there's some more when he casts out more devils into pigs and after this. So it just, and that will carry on again. You'll read that next week, and you can read that in the other chapters we cover this week as well. 24-27, and behold, there arose a great tempest in the sea, insomuch that the ship was covered with the waves, but he was asleep. And his disciples came to him and awoke him, saying, Lord, save us, we perish. And he saith unto them, Why are ye fearful, O ye of little faith? Then he arose and rebuked the winds and the sea, and there was a great calm. But the men marveled, saying, What manner of man is this, that even the winds and the sea obey him? Now, if you were looking at this, you're like, it sounds like a really harsh rebuke from Christ, and that's not the Christ I know. And that's how I always look at these things, because like, if that was happening to me and I was in a boat, even if Christ was there and he was asleep, I would be like, hey, like, you gonna help here? This is really bad. We could drown. Like, that would be scary, and rightfully so, as a human and with human senses and those things that are inbuilt into us to keep us safe. We are going to freak out at this kind of storm. And yet Jesus is sleeping through it, and you're like, what? That's not right. So, first of all, just because there's a storm, it doesn't mean the absence of God. He's still there. And one of the reasons that Jesus' tone can sound harsh here is like because we're reading it literally as it was written. Whereas if we look at the greater picture and then think about it, like back in the wedding in Cana, where his mother spoke to him and asked him to do something, and he said, Woman, what would you have me do? I mean, in this day and age, if you said, Woman, what would you have me to do? You're likely to get slapped. But back then, woman was like the greatest form of respect you could for a woman. That was actually identifying who they were. It was seeing them. It was a huge form of respect. So different context there. It's one of the things. But Jesus was sleeping also because he knew they'd be okay. A teaching moment, all in a panic, and rightly so. All that was needed was to ask Jesus for help. Like, did they try and arouse him? I don't know. But put fear aside and embrace faith. How often are we worried, panicked, and stressing, and think we are forgotten that God and Jesus are asleep? How often? And all we need do is ask. Perceived silence can even be Jesus trusting you. Did you think about that? Because Jesus was trusting them. Perceived silence can even be Jesus trusting you. He will bring peace. So, also, if you want to look at Hymn 105, as suggested in the Come Fly Me manual, this is about this incident, Master the Tempest is raging. Now, all the verses are all like, oh my gosh, this is terrible, and help me, I'm broken, I'm going to die, I'm sweeping over, my sinking soul, and oh my gosh, and And the last one is all like, oh, it's over, you've calmed the waters, everything great. So that's all good. But the the line that I really love here, and Elder Holland speaks to this, so you'll see that when I read his stuff. It's midway through the chorus. It says, "No waters can swallow the ship where lies the master of the ocean and earth and skies." And I'm like, yeah. So, are you in the boat with Jesus? Because nothing's going to swallow that up. Right? Think about that. There was no way that this was going to end disastrously, especially with Christ on board. But it seems at the time that they're abandoned and that Christ doesn't care. And then they're still learning who he is, because then they say well, who is this guy that can control it? He didn't just get up and steer the boat and help us bail water, because that's what the point they're at. But he actually just did calm, and it was calm, and they're all like, "You magic," it's very, very if you weren't used to seeing that ever, it would be quite unnerving in a good way. And then it had them wondering about the depth of his capability. They'd seen him heal someone, but to completely calm the elements, that's a whole other level of miracle happening right there. So that just really speaks to them. So yeah, so this is Matthew 8:24-27. Also go read it in Mark 4:37-41, because Mark gives a bit more details about they weren't the only boat out there. There was more people in trouble. It was a bigger thing, and names some of them there. So have a look at that. And this is about fear versus faith, and knowing Christ and knowing what Christ will do for you. And it's the more you can have that relationship with Christ and know that, he's not going to let the boat sink, even if he's asleep, because he needed a rest. As a human, he needed a rest. He's not human anymore. He's a resurrected being, so he don't need to rest. He's not going to let your boat sink. But if you're in the boat with Christ, or if you invite Christ into your boat, whatever way you want to look at it, he's not going to let that sink. It's a metaphor in there, but however you want to look at that one from either side, you aren't going to sink if you have him on your ship's crew or he is your captain. Because sometimes we have him in our ship's crew because we've got our own thing going. He's still not going to let you sink. But if you can let him be your captain of the boat, it's so much better for you. And kind of nicer that you don't have to take control of everything all the time. Really is. If you can let that part go, so awesome. Still got to be proactive, but follow the captain's advice. There you go. This is not a quote from anyone, but I just really like this sentence, because this is a very much from my psychologist, from other psychology things I've read, and very much speaks to PTSD and anxiety, which we all have at some level. So, yeah. So what if faith, not fear, was your default reaction? Because fear is our default reaction, right? When something like this happens, we're fearful straight away, because we're human, and that's what's going to happen. But what if faith, not fear, was your default reaction? That would be a lot different. And I'm not there yet. I'm working on it, but I'm not there yet. So, yeah, there's a thought, some food for thought there. All right. So, as I said, 2 videos today. I'm now going to read from Elder Holland's book on this one, because his take on it is amazing. So bear with me as I read it, but I'm going to do it in a separate video. So look for that if you're not following on YouTube or Facebook, because it's right there. So if you can't find it, just have a look, because it'll be there. It'll be there on Instagram. Might jumbled up, but yeah, it'll be there. YouTube, it'll be right after, of course. And Facebook might feed it to you in a different way as well, but no doubt it's there. And if you really want to look at it, you'll find it. And if you need help, just drop comments and I'll send it. I'll send you the link. All right, I'll see you there.